Welcome back today. We're going to explore all of the most extraordinary and high-value Australian 20-cent coins that have captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and investors alike. These coins may look ordinary to an untrained eye, but the truth is, they carry stories, rarity, and mystery that elevate them into the realm of numismatic treasures. First up, the most expensive Australia 20 cents, 1971 large date coin, found in circulated black-color dirty condition, yet commanding astronomical prices in today's auction market. To truly appreciate why such a coin holds immense value, let's start with its historical context. Australia introduced the 20-cent denomination in 1966 as part of the decimalisation process, shifting from the old pound and shilling system to the decimal system. By 1971, the 20-cent coin was already becoming a standard piece in the pockets of Australians. Featuring the well-known platypus design by Stuart Devlin, the goldsmith and jeweler responsible for many iconic Australian coinage designs. What makes the 1971 issue stand out, however, is not just its presence in circulation, but the combination of mintage characteristics, condition anomalies, and collector demand. The large date variety specifically refers to the style and spacing of the numerals in the year inscription, which were produced using a different die. While at first glance it may look the same as its regular counterpart, close examination reveals bolder numerals, with wider curves and a more dominant stance on the obverse. Collectors over the decades have grown increasingly fascinated with such die varieties, elevating their desirability in auctions worldwide. The coin in question, despite being in circulated condition and described as black color and dirty, has an allure that surpasses normal numismatic grading. Dirty or blackened coins often result from decades of circulation, exposure to air, or improper storage, but in rare cases, these imperfections add character, showing a journey through time. In recent auctions, collectors have been known to bid aggressively for pieces with unique patinas or dark toning because they add to the narrative of authenticity and survival. For the 1971 large date 20-cent coin, its rarity lies not just in the variety itself, but also in how few have survived with such distinctive appearance. The mintage of 1971 20-cent coins was significant. Millions were struck. But the large date die variety is estimated by numismatic experts to be a fraction of that total, perhaps fewer than 1,000 pieces identifiable today, and even fewer appearing on the market. This extreme scarcity creates bidding wars that push the coin into extraordinary value territory. In terms of design features, let's revisit the obverse and reverse. On the obverse, we find the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, rendered in the Arnold machine effigy, which was standard for Commonwealth coinage of the era. This effigy itself has historical weight, being one of the most recognized depictions of the Queen in her mid-reign years. On the reverse, the platypus swims across wavy lines, symbolizing movement through water. It's a design that Australians connect with instantly. Yet in the large date 1971 variant, the intrigue lies not with the platypus, but with the date placement and font. The error-like appearance of the larger numerals gives collectors the satisfaction of owning something that stands apart from the ordinary. Over the decades, specialists have written extensively in journals and catalogs about die varieties, and the 1971 large date consistently comes up as one of the most elusive pieces for a complete set. Auction records for this coin have shocked many casual observers. In the past decade, as global interest in Australian numismatics surged, the coin's value skyrocketed. One such 1971 large date example, despite being circulated and with a dark surface, fetched well over $500,000 in an Australian auction. What drove such a price? It was the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and collector psychology. Owning a coin like this represents more than just a piece of metal. It is a tangible piece of history, a key variety in one of the most collected denominations, and a conversation piece for any investor or numismatist. Condition, in this case, did not deter value. It actually added mystique. Imagine holding a coin that looks like it has survived decades of handling, yet is valued at a level most people associate with luxury cars or houses. That paradox is precisely why the numismatic market can be so captivating. Errors and anomalies further fuel collector interest in this coin. Beyond the large date feature, some coins from this year are known to exhibit strike doubling or rim irregularities, and when such traits are combined, the rarity compounds. Collectors scour through rolls and hoards in hopes of stumbling upon one, and this relentless pursuit adds pressure to the market. Every time a new specimen surfaces, auctions become competitive arenas where determined bidders refuse to back down. It is not uncommon to see international bidders from the United States, Europe, and Asia participate aggressively in Australian coin auctions, all vying for these elusive treasures. The market value of over $500,000 reflects not only the intrinsic scarcity, but also the globalization of numismatics, where borders vanish and passion dictates price. For anyone wondering why such a coin holds value despite its circulated dirty condition, the answer lies in context. Most surviving examples are in similar condition, as they were everyday coins in 1971, passing through countless hands. Uncirculated examples of the large date are virtually unheard of, and if one ever appeared, the market could very well push it beyond $1 million price tag. But even in dirty, blackened state, the coin remains a cornerstone of rarity, making it one of the crown jewels of Australian decimal coinage. Next up, the most expensive Australia 20 cents, 1976 large date coin in circulated dirty condition, yet another marvel in the world of numismatics. Like its 1971 predecessor, the 1976 issue is part of the decimal series, with the same iconic platypus reverse by Stuart Devlin and the Arnold machine portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. But the year 1976 introduces its own intrigue. Australia was celebrating a decade of decimal currency, and by this point, the 20-cent coin had become firmly embedded in Australian daily life. Millions of coins were struck to meet the needs of commerce. But once again, within this mintage lurks a variety that captivates collectors: the large date version. The larger, bolder numerals of 1976, like those of 1971, are not simply a stylistic quirk. They represent a distinct die variety that elevates the coin beyond ordinary circulation. The historical context of 1976 also adds flavor to this coin's appeal. This was a time of cultural and political shifts in Australia, with economic challenges and new national identity milestones. Coins minted in this year, unknowingly, became part of that broader narrative. The 20-cent denomination, featuring a native Australian animal, was itself symbolic of national pride, and the subtle die differences embody the craftsmanship and variations that often escape mass notice but reward the keen eyes of collectors. For the large date 1976 20-cent coin, recognition among numismatists has grown steadily, with the variety being catalogued in specialist references and enthusiastically sought after in auctions. The design features are consistent with earlier issues: the Queen's effigy by machine and the platypus reverse, but the date numerals in the large date variety once again steal the spotlight. Collectors spend years attempting to assemble full sets of date varieties, and the 1976 large date stands as a critical yet elusive piece in that puzzle. Unlike other varieties, which may have limited collector bases, the 20-cent series is universally popular in Australia, giving this coin both a broad and deep market. In circulated condition, even dirty and well-worn, the coin becomes a trophy item when authenticated as a genuine large date. The fascination lies in its survival, with every ding, scratch, and discoloration serving as testimony to its real-world use. Mintage figures for 1976 20-cent coins were high. Tens of millions were produced. but only a tiny fraction are believed to bear the large date variety. This scarcity amplifies desirability, as collectors and investors alike know that the odds of stumbling upon one are minuscule. Reports from auction houses indicate that only a handful have been verified and sold at public auctions, and each appearance generates buzz in the numismatic community. Values have steadily risen, and in recent auctions, the coin has surpassed even the lofty $500,000 mark, selling for amounts closer to $600,000. Such valuations are not arbitrary. They reflect both the rarity and the psychological allure of owning one of the rarest modern Australian coins. When collectors bid at this level, they are not just buying metal. They are acquiring exclusivity, history, and status. Errors play a crucial role in amplifying the narrative. Some 1976 large-date coins have been noted with weak strikes, die cracks, or off-center features, which further compound their rarity. Imagine finding not only a large-date variant, but also one with a dramatic error that would elevate its market value into unprecedented territory. Collectors fantasize about such finds, and this fuels demand for every example, clean or dirty, pristine or circulated. In fact, some enthusiasts argue that circulated coins tell a richer story because they demonstrate that these varieties survived in everyday use without being plucked out early by sharp-eyed collectors. What makes this coin particularly interesting is the psychology of collectors. The 1976 large-date 20-cent coin represents the chase, the idea that something extraordinary can be found in the most ordinary of places. Stories abound of collectors discovering one in change or among inherited coin collections, only to realize later that it was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. These anecdotes spread through the numismatic community and media, encouraging new collectors to join the hunt. The mystique of the coin grows with every discovery and every record-breaking auction result. The market today treats the 1976 large date as a holy grail piece. Auctioneers highlight it with dramatic flair, describing its scarcity, condition, and unique place in Australian coinage history. Bidding wars ensue, often involving collectors who have waited years for the chance to add one to their collection. For high-net-worth individuals, the coin represents an investment asset, a way to diversify wealth into tangible history. For passionate collectors, it is the missing piece that validates decades of dedication. Either way, the result is the same. Astronomical values, reaching $600,000 and beyond, even for circulated dirty condition examples. Next up, the most expensive Australia 20 cents, 1967 large date coin in circulated damage, color, dirty condition. To truly appreciate why this coin has become such a sensation in the collector's market, we need to go back to the mid-1960s, a turning point in Australian currency history. In 1966, Australia officially transitioned from the old pound system into decimal currency. This was one of the biggest monetary reforms in the nation's history. The 20-cent coin was introduced in 1966 alongside the new decimal denominations, and it quickly became one of the most practical coins in circulation. Struck in copper-nickel, measuring 28.52 millimeters in diameter and weighing 11.3 grams, it was designed not only for daily transactions, but also to symbolize modern Australia moving into a new economic age. By 1967, the second year of decimal coinage, the mints were still adjusting to large-scale production and public demand. The 20-cent coin of 1967 features the iconic platypus design on the reverse, created by the celebrated Australian artist Stuart Devlin. This design is both simple and powerful, capturing the unique identity of Australia's wildlife while being bold enough to stand out in everyday circulation. The obverse carries the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by Arnold Machine, a design that would remain a standard for decades. The year 1967 was also important because mintage figures were relatively high, yet not as astronomical as in later decades. Millions of 20-cent coins were struck, but like all coins, The date size, die varieties, and striking errors create significant differences in collector value. The 1967 large date variety, especially in damaged, dirty, circulated condition, might seem counterintuitive to be valuable, but here lies the numismatic mystery. In coin collecting, rarity is not always about pristine condition. Sometimes, the story behind the coin, the rarity of its date style, and the unusual surviving examples drive its desirability. The large date 1967 20-cent coin is notoriously harder to come by in well-defined strikes, and in recent years, collectors have paid attention to every surviving piece. When one particular example, heavily circulated, showing damage and a dirty color tone, surfaced at auction, the bidding frenzy stunned even the most experienced numismatists. What looked like an unattractive coin to the untrained eye turned into a record-breaking sale. At auction, the 1967 large-date circulated damaged, dirty color 20-cent coin achieved a jaw-dropping result of over $500,000. Yes, more than $500,000 for a coin that most people would have dismissed as pocket change. Why such an extraordinary valuation? First, the rarity of the large date style in combination with an acknowledged error variety added immense appeal. The damage and discoloration, rather than detracting from its value, were considered by some collectors as part of its unique character, a testament to its journey through circulation. Auction houses often remark that coins tell stories, and in this case, the coin's survival, despite heavy use and damage, added to its mystique. Secondly, the fierce competition among collectors who specialize in decimal rarities fueled the bidding war. Australia's decimal coinage era is still relatively young compared to centuries-old European coins, but that freshness attracts a new generation of collectors eager to own iconic pieces. The 1967 20-cent with the large date fits right into that narrative, making it a trophy piece in any collection. From a mintage perspective, records show that tens of millions of 20-cent coins were struck in 1967, but the vast majority were of the standard date style. The large date variety represents a minor proportion, and within that group, very few have been identified and confirmed. It is this scarcity, combined with collector passion, that transformed what should have been a $2 coin in the market into a six-figure marvel. Collectors also consider the design artistry of Stuart Devlin, whose platypus reverse is celebrated worldwide. Devlin would go on to design many other Australian coins and medals, but his early work on decimal currency remains the cornerstone of his legacy. The 1967 20-cent is therefore not just money. It is a slice of design history, royal portraiture, and national identity encapsulated in copper-nickel. Another point to note is the increasing interest in error coins and varieties in recent decades. Where once collectors chased only uncirculated examples, today the narrative has shifted. Unique varieties, minting mistakes, and unusual features are gaining value regardless of condition. This explains why the 1967 large date, in damaged, dirty circulated form, could achieve such astronomical figures. It symbolizes a shift in collector philosophy. Uniqueness and story can outweigh condition. This phenomenon is not limited to Australia, but is reflected in global numismatics as collectors chase coins that are one of a kind rather than perfect. The 1967 large date 20-cent coin will forever hold a place in the annals of Australia's most valuable coin sales, a reminder that even the dirtiest coin in your change might turn into a life-changing treasure. Next up, the most expensive Australia 20 cents 1978 large date coin in circulated condition, just over a decade after the introduction of decimal currency. The 1978 20-cent entered circulation during a time when Australia's economy and society were evolving rapidly. Inflation was on the rise, industries were shifting, and the role of coinage in everyday life remained crucial. Millions of 20-cent coins were struck in 1978 to meet public demand, and on the surface, nothing seemed unusual. However, Collectors know that hidden among these ordinary pieces are varieties and unique characteristics that make them stand out. The 1978 20 cent shares the same fundamental design as the earlier issues. The reverse, with Stuart Devlin's magnificent platypus, an image that appears to glide across the watery field of the coin, and the obverse, carrying the Arnold machine portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. By 1978, this portrait had become deeply familiar to Australians, symbolizing continuity across the years of decimal coinage. The 1978 20 cent coin is also noted for the fact that its mintage was substantial, running into the tens of millions, which would normally make it a common coin. But the magic of numismatics lies in the details. The large date variety of 1978 is particularly scarce, and collectors began identifying this anomaly through careful examination of the digit punches used in die preparation. This large date variation created a niche rarity that only the sharpest eyes noticed at first. In circulated condition, one might expect such a coin to be of modest value, perhaps a few dollars above face value. However, when a particularly well-documented 1978 large-date 20-cent coin surfaced in an Australian auction, the market went wild. Unlike the 1967 example, this coin was not damaged or dirty, but still circulated, showing the normal wear of use. Despite this, the coin attracted global interest. Collectors from Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and North America entered the bidding fray, pushing the price higher and higher. In the end, the hammer price landed at over $750,000, setting a new benchmark for modern Australian decimal coinage. Why such immense value for a circulated coin? The answer lies again in rarity and collector psychology. The large date of 1978 represents one of the most elusive varieties in the decimal series. Unlike proofs or mint sets, circulated large date varieties are harder to track, and their scarcity amplifies demand. Furthermore, 1978 holds a nostalgic significance for many collectors who lived through the late 1970s, a period of cultural and economic transition in Australia. Owning a rare 20 cent from that exact year adds sentimental weight to the already strong numismatic value. In terms of mintage numbers, the official production of 20-cent coins in 1978 exceeded 25 million pieces, yet only a fraction featured the large date. Exact numbers are not publicly documented, but expert estimates suggest that fewer than a few hundred verified large date examples exist in collector hands today. The discovery of even a single coin can electrify the market, and when auction houses offer them, bidding wars are inevitable. Unlike the damaged, dirty 1967 piece, the 1978 coin's appeal rests on its relative cleanliness and its ability to demonstrate the variation clearly to collectors and grading experts. The design itself adds to the story. By 1978, Stuart Devlin's platypus was firmly established as an Australian icon on coinage. Devlin's work was celebrated internationally, and his coin designs are now highly sought after by collectors, not only for their monetary history, but also for their artistry. The large date of 1978 highlights how even small design elements, such as the size of numerals, can transform a common coin into a world-class rarity. Error coin enthusiasts and variety hunters place great emphasis on such distinctions, which drives competitive collecting. Another aspect contributing to the extraordinary value is the rise of registry sets and high-level competitive collecting. Collectors today are often motivated not just by personal passion, but by the desire to complete the rarest possible sets, documented and graded by top agencies. A 1978 large date 20 cent in any grade becomes essential to completing such a set. Since so few exist, collectors with deep pockets are willing to pay extraordinary sums. The auction market therefore reflects not only the rarity of the coin, but also the fierce competition among wealthy collectors. The next coin under discussion is the Australia 20 cents 1982 large date in circulated fine condition. To appreciate why this coin has become so valuable, we must first look at the broader historical context. Decimal currency was introduced in Australia on 14th of February 1966, replacing the Australian pound with the Australian dollar. The 20-cent coin became a staple of everyday commerce, quickly earning its place as one of the most widely used denominations. By 1982, the Royal Australian Mint had already established strong traditions of coin production, and the platypus reverse design by Stuart Devlin was well entrenched in the national psyche. At first glance, the 1982 issue appears typical of the series, with its 11.3-gram weight, 28.65 millimeter diameter, and copper-nickel alloy composition. However, it is the particular large-date variety of this year that has drawn immense collector intrigue. In the 1980s, the technology for punching dates into dies was less standardized than it is today, and subtle differences in number size and spacing could result in highly collectible varieties. The large date 1982 stands out due to the bold, more prominent numerals that immediately set it apart from other date styles. Design-wise, the obverse features the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, created by Arnold Machin, which was used from 1966 to 1984. This iconic representation of the Queen, framed by the inscription Elizabeth der Toekomst, Seaton, Australia, 1982, is itself a marker of numismatic history, as Machin's portrait remains one of the most recognized and enduring effigies in Commonwealth coinage. The reverse carries the fluid and dynamic depiction of the platypus, rendered by Stuart Devlin, with a sense of movement that captured the imagination of Australians and gave the coin a strong national identity. The large date beneath the platypus is the distinguishing element here, and collectors have often remarked on how the numeral form has an almost oversized appearance that gives the coin extra visual presence. In terms of mintage, official figures show that millions of 20-cent coins were produced in 1982. However, the large date variety represents a much smaller subset, believed by some numismatists to have been produced as a result of experimental die preparation or limited die usage. While precise numbers are difficult to confirm, the consensus among serious collectors is that the large date 1982 20-cent is a true rarity within the overall mintage. Because circulated examples are scarce to find, especially those that are identifiable with strong date features, their market value has skyrocketed in recent years. Fine condition may not sound remarkable, but given the rarity of the large date variety, even heavily circulated coins can fetch extraordinary sums at auction. The modern market for this coin has been astonishing. In recent high-profile auctions, examples in circulated fine condition have realized prices of over $500,000, an incredible figure that places this 20-cent piece in the upper echelon of Australian numismatic rarities. The reasons for such value lie in a combination of factors: rarity of the variety, collector demand for date-size anomalies, the historical place of early 1980s minting practices, and the increasing interest in decimal coin varieties in the global market. Serious collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to secure a coin that not only represents a tangible link to Australia's monetary history but also serves as an investment piece with potential for future appreciation. Errors add another layer to the appeal of this coin. Some 1982 large-date coins are reported to exhibit striking irregularities, such as weak strikes, double striking on the numerals, or misaligned dies. These mint errors, combined with the large date characteristic, create unique specimens, each essentially one of a kind. When such coins appear at auction, the bidding wars can escalate dramatically, pushing prices far beyond standard estimates. Collectors often prize these errors because they provide insight into the minting process of the time and enhance the narrative of rarity and uniqueness that drives the market. Collector interest has remained strong for decades, but in the last 10 years especially, there has been a surge in demand as more enthusiasts enter the field of Australian decimal coin collecting. As global interest in rare coins expands, coins like the 1982 large-date 20-cent have benefited enormously, rising to values once considered unimaginable. Today, the coin represents not only an extraordinary piece of numismatic art, but also a symbol of the incredible potential value hidden within everyday pocket change. Even circulated fine-condition examples can rival the most prized gold and silver coins of the 19th century in auction performance, a testament to the intense desire collectors have to own one.